famous story that's been told time and again, but it always feels like it's worth repeating. Art Rooney Sr. was asked by Pete Rozelle, then the NFL's commissioner, if the Steelers, with all their successes and all their Super Bowl glories, wanted to become branded as America's team. And before that moniker became attached to the Cowboys, it was Rooney who'd reject Rozelle by saying, Pete, we're not America's team. We're Pittsburgh's team. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates, the other two teams in town that I cover. I hope you'll check those out as well. All these years later, the Steelers remain Pittsburgh's team. They belong to one city, and they always, always will. But in the interim, my goodness, have they become a big thing globally. And a week out from training camp, while I still have the opportunity to seize on subjects other than, Brandon Ayuk said something to somebody and, that kind of stuff, I want to step back and appreciate the scope of this nation. And it's called a nation, even though it's international in every way. I hear from listeners of this program worldwide. And believe me, that's not because of me. That's because of the team that I'm talking about. That's because of the subject matter. That's because of how widespread Steelers fandom has become. It's not just across America, as Rozelle had suggested all those years ago. It's across everywhere. When I was younger, I had to do a lot of traveling, as my father was an ambassador for the former Yugoslavia, and I got to experience at an extremely young age how whenever I would say the word Pittsburgh, wherever I was, whoever I was talking to would be able to finish that by saying Steelers. I'm going to bet that only about 99% of you who are hearing this episode today have experienced exactly that. And it's cool, isn't it? Well, that went to another level in 2013 when I covered the Steelers game against the Vikings in London and got to see and talk to an unimaginable amount of people who showed up for the rallies beforehand, for the main event itself. By the way, it was for both teams. I hadn't realized the Vikings had that kind of support. And a lot of the people with whom I spoke were serving in the military, most of them at German bases, and they made the short ride over to Wembley Stadium to see their favorite team in person, in some cases for the first time in 20 or 30 years. But I also talked to, and this never stops flooring me, people who've never been to Pittsburgh. And this isn't just in the overseas games. It's even in the games that are around the United States, especially when you get more to the south, down toward Texas. I think they see Pittsburgh as being 5 billion miles away, and they've never even been here. They've seen the pretty pictures for the most part. They've heard about the tunnel, the only city in the world with an entrance and all that other fancy stuff and our spectacular downtown skyline. But they've never set foot here. When they do come, and we get to meet a bunch of those, my wife and I, at our downtown headquarters and shop on Fifth Avenue, it's treated like a pilgrimage, like coming to Mecca or something. It's really, really neat. This year, the NFL awarded the Steelers, I guess that's the terminology, awarded Germany as another one of the countries for which they've been assigned marketing rights. I don't think the Steelers are the only ones who have that with Germany. In fact, I'd be surprised if they were. But that made Germany the third such country because the Steelers already had such rights with Mexico and, of course, with the Rooney family's native Ireland. That affords them the right, without having to compete with other NFL franchises in the same spaces, to promote who they are, to promote themselves as Ireland's team or one of Ireland's teams. And what's more, a couple of months ago, Calvin Austin and Connor Hayward, two very perfect candidates to be sending overseas to work with kids and clinics. They went to Cork, actually, and helped however much is possible in such a context to spread the word of the game of American football, of the brand of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm just here to take the really bold stance that I like this. This makes me happy. I like seeing more people around the world appreciate this so very American game. I like seeing regular season NFL games being held in places like London, like Germany, like Brazil, like Mexico soon enough. The Steelers will probably be there next year, as a matter of fact. And I really, really like when I hear my city's name being spoken somewhere way, way, way far away in a positive connotation. When I was all the way over in Serbia just now, last month visiting family, the subject of the Steelers came up quite a bit, including from people who are running Steelers fan clubs, not Steelers bars. Steelers bars thing never really did anything for me. It doesn't mean much. It just means that there's a bar that's good at changing the TV channels whenever a certain group walks in. I'm talking about actual fan clubs, actual places to gather. And they had them in Belgrade, they had them in Novi Sad, they had them in Niš. I heard from a bunch of these people, and that's just, I'm sorry, that's really, really cool. It feels like there's a piece of Pittsburgh everywhere. When we come back, J1Q. This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar. Today's J1Q comes from Ryan, who says, DK, I agree with your suggestion on the Wednesday episode that the wide receiver bubble will follow the same path that we've seen with running backs past few years. It makes me wonder why these two skill positions transition from the college game so effortlessly, and yet it's rare for quarterbacks to come in and find immediate success. I really believe I've got a simple answer for you, Ryan. And I certainly hope that nobody who's listening, who's ever played any of the three positions that you just cited, will take offense to that answer. But my goodness, the quarterback position, the leap from college to the NFL in terms of your cerebral qualities, in terms of being able to read, understand, manipulate NFL defenses is unlike anything that you can compare when it comes to wide receivers or running backs. Those positions, again, I say this respectfully, those positions are pure athleticism. Of course, it helps to be smart. Of course, it helps to be able to make adjustments to perfect your technique. And yeah, even in those settings, it helps to be able to read NFL defenses. But unless we want to kid ourselves here, those positions are the X going up against the O, and the X is drawn up on a diagram, and it doesn't come with that many choices. Whereas the quarterback, my goodness, I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start in attempting to describe all of the things that they have to acquire along the way and why it takes so long, and historically, if we're being fair about this, has taken even longer than it currently does. What you, I think, are citing here, Ryan, is the frustration that a lot of teams have when they pick somebody right off the bat, number 1 overall, number 2 overall, whatever it happens to be, and they think that kid's just going to waltz right into training camp and be Joe Burrow. And it doesn't happen. Or it doesn't happen right away. They can also become late bloomers. Sometimes that comes through a series of falling on your face moments early on, but then you grow up. Think of Daniel Jones. Sometimes it's because they'll go old school on you and let you be the backup and let you learn as much as possible before they put you into action. And then you go out there like a Jordan Love or a Jalen Hurts and you get the job done and everybody wonders why everyone was upset with you. Look, I can't state this particular stance often enough. I believe that the NFL needs an affiliated minor league. I believe that it's so important to the NFL's continuing growth that all 32 franchises have themselves a competent quarterback, as opposed to, what would you say the ratio is now? About 19 or 20, right? If that many? I'm not talking about Patrick Mahomes level competent. I just mean competent. And on top of that, the league would make so much money off of this if it's done right and televised. You sell the rights, but don't just tell these quarterbacks to go sit in a room somewhere. You know, they're not getting better. You're wasting assets. You're wasting a high draft pick. And meanwhile, as you point out, the wide receivers and the running backs and everybody else, they just get to run out on the field and play. I appreciate the question. It was a good one. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. We're going to do one more of these tomorrow, and then next week, that.